Hi everyone, welcome to another KE Report webinar, also produced in association with Focus Communications. In this webinar, we are chatting with Graphene Manufacturing Group, also known as GMG, traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol GMG. I'm your host, Cory Fleck. We will be taking questions throughout this webinar. You can also email questions directly to me after this webinar at fleck@kereport.com, and I will get those addressed for all of you after this webinar. One thing to consider as well is that as we progress through this webinar, there will be a recording made available to all of you, and especially all of you who have signed up, you will have first priority to that webinar. Now, representing Graphene Manufacturing Group, I am joined by the CEO and Managing Director, Craig Nicol, also the CFO and Director, Chris Ohlrich. We will be walking through a presentation that the company has prepared. I will be interjecting questions as we progress through that presentation. So if I don't get to your question right away, please know that I have already a lot of questions that were sent in, and we will be following up as time permits throughout this webinar. Craig, let's bring you in first. Please just give us a quick little overview on what we are going to be really focusing on here for this webinar, and I will also bring up the slides then.
Yeah, thanks, Cory. Good to be back on. Good to see you again. So Chris and I will take you through an overview of the company, the background to it, and then go into some of the product outcomes that we're seeing, and where we think and how big we think the markets are for these products. And then we'll end with a financing round update from Chris as well.
Okay, perfect. Well, guys, the presentation is up here. We already have a couple people in the chat and a couple questions coming in. Take it away, Craig.
Very good. Thanks, Cory. So the first slide is the usual disclaimer for forward-looking statements. And also we're going to be mentioning some product outcomes here that, of course, we can't guarantee that will happen all the time and every time. So it's important that that's just noted up front. Just for those who haven't seen what Graphene Manufacturing Group is, we're really easily classed as a disruptive clean tech company. We listed on the TSX.V some 4 or 5 months ago, largely ex-Shell leadership team in the company. We've developed and improved our own way of making making graphene from natural gas, and that graphene is very high quality and has a number of really attractive qualities about it. This process that we developed is owned as a trade secret, and also we've got a number of pending product patents that we're either licensed of or owners of in the downstream. And that's how we protect our IP. Our products that we're actually focused on are focused on energy-saving solutions and also batteries, and including our next generation graphene aluminium ion battery.
Craig, just a quick question regarding the team, the executives, a lot of former Shell executives. How did this all come together? Can you give us a bit of a background there?
Yeah, there was 4 Shell executives and Chris, who's ex-Deutsche Bank and various other different companies that he was in leadership teams with. The 4 people had very strong relationships over a period of 20 years, some maybe 8 years, but and they're largely engineers that we'd all worked with each other at some point in time in our career, and we'd all worked all over the world. We had just living in Brisbane at the time, all from different nationalities as well, and we just so happened to be in Brisbane and good friends. And I had asked about if they're interested in this crazy idea of making natural gas into graphene with nothing else, and 5 years later, here we are. So that's probably the best way to describe it.
Perfect. Thank you.
So what is graphene? Look, it's lots of different descriptions out there. It's got 50,000 or so patents or PhDs being developed. That's increasing every year. It's a super material, or it's a material that has many different opportunities for it to be used commercially. That's another way of saying it. But it is important that each graphene doesn't do all of these things. And our graphene does certain things. And what we've found is it's fantastic at thermal conductivity, at enhancing lubrication, and really good at ion storage in batteries. So that's why we've picked those things. Other graphenes can do other things, including amazing electrical conductivity. And if you really pushed it, you can also make it just an enormous composite, providing strength carrying opportunity as well. But it's a black powder. Effectively, that's what it is. When it all comes down to it, it's a nano powder that has the ability to do these things because it has a very high surface area. That's generally the thing that makes it having a lot of these things, the benefits come through. And so, this is what it looks like. That's our black powder there. It's extremely black. You can't generally see into the material. It absorbs all the light because it is so pure. It is just carbon atoms. That's all that is. Anywhere between 3 to 20 atom high carbon. And you're saying, well, why can I see it? Well, that's because they're aggregated, because carbon loves to aggregate, and that's why you can see it. And that's why it's lumped together. So there are trillions and trillions of our products in that pile there. Whereas what you see from pretty much everyone else in the market is a graphite graphene on the side, and that's a grayish color. And that's where they take graphite and make it into graphene. And that's typically what that looks like. And you can just tell that there is a fundamental difference in the quality as a result. And that quality difference has a difference in performance in product as well. So what is our competitive advantage? Why are we believing that we have a right to be on the international stage and one of the world leaders in graphene and products enhanced by graphene? It's because of our process fundamentally that then makes different products or different type of graphene and makes hydrogen as a byproduct. So we just take natural gas, we put an electric plasma into that natural gas, and that means it's the fourth state of matter. So you have solid, liquid, gas, and plasma. It's the fourth state of matter that no one really talks about, especially even in engineering degree, but it's 98% of the universe. So we just don't see it much here in the world. You see it northern lights and neon lights. Some plasmas are pretty common, but we create a plasma out of the natural gas, and that's very, very difficult to do. And we found a way to do it, and we only use a tiny bit of electricity. And then what we're able to do is then create different types of graphene depending on the settings of our equipment. And that is truly revolutionary because we have no feedstock. We just take gas from the street. We don't pre-process it, and we push it straight through, and we make graphene. We collect it, bag it, and then you have hydrogen otherwise. It's years of development with some pretty amazing technologists, scientists, and engineers behind it, and some world-leading university equipment. Whereas everyone else, who obviously make another product, and that'll have its niches, and we're not in any way saying that's not good graphene coming from graphite, but it is a different type of quality, and it's a different type of supply chain. You take graphite, and you take mining activities just and crushing it, and then you finally get through splitting the carbon layers out, you get what's called graphene oxide, and then you further process it into graphene. And that typically lends itself with some other things in there like silicon, because you can't get those atoms out. So that's the fundamental difference that we have as a business. Well, how do we then use that in a business sense? Because it's okay having this tiny little box that splits methane into carbon and hydrogen. But what we do is we then go to the next step and put that into products, and that's what we sell. So we don't really look to try to sell the graphene into the market. That's not what we're here to do. We did up front, and we realized how hard it is to mix the graphene, and then we realized we were helping everyone else. And we said, well, why don't we just do it our own products and then sell the products? Much higher value, and you can sell a solution, which is obviously what people want. They don't want a black powder that is 50 times lighter than water and difficult to mix. So we take natural gas, we put it through our own process that is far more than just a little box now. There's an enormous amount of control systems, touch panel controls that enable it to work. We then create that graphene. That graphene then gets mixed into, and these are the three products we're focusing on right now: the Thermal XR, which is our air conditioning coating system, our graphene lubricant concentrate, which we're hoping to push into some large lubricant manufacturers, and then some the third and probably the most talked about is the graphene aluminium ion battery.
Okay. Hey, Craig, a couple questions coming in, if I could, before we get into these different divisions, just on how you guys go through this production. Quick question is, can you use other sources of carbon, like CO2, to produce the end product?
Yeah, in fact, that's our end goal. So eventually we will get there, but we need a lot of R&D to get there. So we'll be able to take CO2 and put that into oxygen or O3 and carbon. We have done it very, very limited, but it's actually very difficult to get the bottled CO2 or free flowing CO2 in a clean stream, which is kind of an interesting dilemma given the problem that it's causing. But it's actually a lot more costly as well than methane. And methane is far more readily available. So we have to do an enormous amount of work to be able to do that as well. And right now we've got to make money for our shareholders. So we'd love to be a science experiment, but we're not. We're here to make money for our shareholders. So that's why we're pushing into these products, and we haven't gone around and tried to work out how to do CO2 splitting into carbon and make good that into a business. But there is an opportunity there eventually. It's a much more difficult reaction, but surely, hopefully, one day we can.
Okay. And Craig, what about costs? What does it cost to produce a kilo of the graphene, and what are the commercial quantities that you guys can produce currently, say per day, per week, per month, whatever metrics you have?
Sure.
Please.
Yeah, I think that's two good questions. So cost is really just relevant to our major costs, and the costs are gas, natural gas, electricity, and labor, really. So labor right now we're taking as a kind of a management overlay, and so because we will, once we fully scale our facilities, that labor cost will then get better attributed to and at scale. But electricity is minor. Really, the main cost is our carbon cost, is our natural gas. And just for people who are listening, and then they've probably got different gas costs all around the world, but some of the cheapest gas costs are obviously in your beautiful country, in Canada, and obviously in America, where it's $1 a gigajoule. And in a gigajoule of gas, you have 15 kilograms of carbon. So I'll just say that again. 1 gigajoule has 15 kilograms of carbon atoms, and that's delivered to your door wherever you have a gas pipe. So if you're paying $1 for that 15 kilograms of carbon atoms, that's a pretty expensive cost. You've just got to know, you've got to have hundreds of years of oil and gas experience to be able to work out how to do that and put it into a very high temperature plasma without blowing people up. And if you think you can do that, that's the business we're in. So that's why we're very attracted to, at large scale, you have a very low cost of carbon and end manufacturing, because there's really only a tiny bit of cost of electricity after that, which currently we use solar cells, and we'll use solar power or renewable power with batteries, hopefully, as we scale as well. So it'll be a very green process as well.
Okay, so it sounds like no supply issues then with natural gas. That was another question that came in. Final question, then we can move on. But does the process or production process generate enough hydrogen to be commercialized at the back end?
Yeah, so hydrogen is a big boys game. So our management teams generally come from multi-billion-dollar LNG projects, liquefied natural gas projects. And so we've come from that, $20-30 billion game of shrinking things down with making them colder, which is what you need to do to hydrogen to really make it work if you want to ship it overseas, for instance. So you get at scale with hydrogen, it's a very costly business. So we've got two ways of doing this. Right now, we kind of use it in generally we use it in a generator to use that to feed back. And obviously our tail gas is also including some of our unprocessed methane as well. So we're not 100% conversion, although I think we can get up to 70% hydrogen by mole when we're coming through in some of our grades. So it can get, very high hydrogen rate. But initially we're taking it to basically, most of the time using that to power our process. But at scale, there's two ways. We could either go into helping our hydrogen, cleaning that up and then having that as an export, or probably more generally, because we really want to focus on our carbon, is actually put that through the fence to somebody who could use it, who's already got a hydrogen plant process, cleaning process for that. So those are the two ways you could do it. Really, you need this at scale, though. We make 1 kilogram of hydrogen for every kilogram of we make 3 kilograms of carbon. We make 1 kilogram of hydrogen. That's just how the CH4 molecule works. We can't change that. So we make a lot more carbon than hydrogen. When you start talking very large scale energy projects for batteries, so very large scale battery projects, we could be making thousands of tons of hydrogen. So that's probably, out of all of these, the most graphene that you would need right now are the 3 products. And that's where we could start making substantial hydrogen. And that's probably where we would just probably pass it to somebody else to use and get that benefit for the society that way.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Craig. We can move on now.
Okay. Thanks, mate. So Thermal XR, our air conditioning coating system, we've estimated as a management team, bringing in IEA data, about a $26 billion market opportunity for us. That's globally. We'll show you an example later of what we can do there and why we're saying that. The graphene lubricant, which is less developed but in market in different places and under development at the same time, is generally about a $14 billion market for additives globally for engine oil. And that is, despite what people think, is growing. It's a growing market. Lubricants are still needed, even in electric vehicles, although not as much. But there's still a lot of large trucks that need them. And then obviously the battery market, which right now is somewhere between $100 billion and maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less, but it's undeniably growing, and that market is really unlimited in the end. Okay. So Thermal XR is our first product out to market, and we're hoping to get some reasonable revenue through this, and it's really showing to customers or what we can do for them through demo projects. And so what we've done here is shown what a demo project has done for a very large local governance council building, where we've saved, through a third-party review, 52% energy saving. So that's just amazing, and that's why we don't release too many of these projects, because they've got to go through a full analysis by a third party. Some of our customers who we're working with, we've done maybe similar or less, and we won't release that data because we haven't done this full third party review. So we put this one out to show that this is what has been done. It doesn't happen on every one, but it is showing what is possible. And it's obviously a very large energy saving for that customer. And also what's amazing is the resultant reduction in CO2 per year. Now, to get that type of 3.3 ton of CO2 saving, which of course you put over 5 years, which is easily possible with this air conditioner. It's pretty much a brand new air conditioner. So that's about 15 ton of CO2. We would have used between 40 grams of graphene to 60 grams of graphene. So you can see how much negative we will be as a business when we scale. we have such a small amount of our product going in with enormous amount of energy reduction. And it's really something special. And that's why we've backed this product for many years. And we brought it all the way through now. We've now got government approval to be able to make this and sell it in Australia and export overseas as well.
Okay. Craig, quick question on that. There are a couple people that pointed this out, but the 26% uncertainty level, I realize this is just this one test, but what other tests are you doing? What can you do to lower that uncertainty level, I guess?
Yeah, so what we do, it's relevant to how we've determined that. What we do is we take the energy recorded over a period prior and the energy, and then we do the service, and then we take the energy recorded on Wi-Fi units after, and then we bring that out and we create a regression model with the weather and the pattern of energy use during that time. And statistically, that's what that comes out to be. If I was to show you the chart, you would go, oh yeah, that's saving energy, because it's just lower than what it should be.
Fair.
It's just a statistical way of showing what a third party who does this for a living, a certified verification and measurement professional, and that's their job. They go in and analyze energy reductions, and then they quantify it and produce a report. That's what they've said, and that's the way they've stated it.
Thanks. Now, can this thermal XR work on smaller thermal items, such as electric motors, or even smaller, like computer chips?
Well, yeah, that's a good one. Look, it's got such a massive opportunity. There are literally over 1 billion air conditioners alone. And so that's the first market we know it's going to work in. It needs to have some type of radiator to radiate it away. There's also other markets like refrigeration, which we've done work. We've definitely reduced energy consumption from refrigeration, from fridges and freezers. And then there's also transport, and we've done work on that as well. So we hope to come out shortly and show what that is with a third-party analysis, reducing diesel in consumption with our product being applied to air conditioners on transport vehicles as well. So that's already more than we could possibly ever try to chew off. Where it could go, there's battery housings for cooling lithium-ion batteries. The world is just swamped with heat transfer as the major reason for energy consumption, and this product releases more heat. How it works is it basically releases radiation energy as well as convection, which is what creates the benefit. I'm happy to take any questions on that, because there are lots of engineers, I'm sure, on the call going, how is that possible? But it does work. Any other questions on that one?
There are more questions on the markets that this is going to get into, so we can move on, and we'll talk about those later. Yeah.
I think this is probably what most people want to see. We always leave this to last, because otherwise we don't get to anything else. So the Graphene aluminium-ion battery was developed by University of Queensland at the Australian Institute for Bioengineering Nanotechnology. They are one of the world leading institutes in nanotechnology, and have invented various different vaccines and other amazing things that are out in the world today. It has, in conjunction with our chief scientific officer, at early days, and he's actually on the patent pending documentation, and now through to today. So it's been over many years of collaboration that we have now licensed to be able to use what is absolutely world-leading, game-changing technology. The aluminium-ion battery only uses graphene. It's about 3/4 graphene, 1/4 aluminium salts or chloride, and then no lithium, no copper, no manganese, no cobalt, no synthetic graphite. So, and what it does is it operates like a supercapacitor as well as a battery. So it's what's called a hybrid supercapacitor battery, which is kind of the hallowed land. That's very fast charging and stored, which is what supercapacitors do. And batteries, which is what stores energy, it does that as well. And hence, we've got a lot of people on coming in our website some massive, some household brands, really, and then some ones in the middle where you go, that's interesting, and you find a bit more, and they're even more interesting what you think, and then some startups as well, and all different applications who want to come and talk to us, and some just literally saying, can I just buy, X thousands right now? Because the market is very soft. There's not enough supply of batteries. Everybody's batterifying everything. And so generally the market wants batteries, but on top of this battery is seen as one of those hallowed products that has been wanted, I guess, by a number of companies for some time. And I think the interesting thing is Stanford, the second line there, is the best so far for an aluminium ion battery energy density and power density. Now, we don't talk about power density for lithium ion battery because it's just not good enough. It's only about 200, generally 200 watts per kilogram. No one talks about it. It's actually a really big thing for some applications. Some applications, lithium ion battery does it well, but some applications you really need higher power density. And what it is, it's ability to be charged fastly and discharged fastly. That's it really fast. That's what power density is about. Ours sits at basically just at the bottom end of a supercapacitor, about 7,000 watts per kilogram, which means it can be charged very, very fast, discharged very, very fast. So it's fantastic for using electric takeoff vehicles, like air taxis that we probably will see a lot more of in the future than we have in the past. And then also some other interesting applications like, say, very large trucks, rigs for long haul trucking, possibly fast enough to be able to take that market. But really, personal electronics is the first place, which is the biggest battery market there is right now in terms of value. And that is a perfect, to be able to charge your phone really fast is obviously what a lot of people on this call would love. Now, the energy density is really interesting. We're sitting at 150, 160. That is a very fast charging rate, but that's being charged at as well. Now, some have argued that that's actually it's less than lithium ion. We generally won't be needing any cooling. So if you take cooling, which is, say, for lithium ion batteries sitting about 300 or so watt hours per kilogram, you take off the cooling density and you're at about 150 or so kilowatt hours per kilogram. So it's actually it's right now it's about where lithium ion is once you add the cooling in. But that's after 6 months of worth of work, and lithium ion batteries being tested and evolved over 40 years or so, 30, 40 years. So we've got a long way to go. We can go up to about 1,000 or so watt hours per kilogram. So huge opportunity to keep going. And, we hope to come out and smash that at some point in the future and go, now we're here. We're just more dense. And by the way, that power density is still the same. That's what we hope to do.
Okay. Craig, real quick, what's the operating temperature range of this battery?
So it operates like a supercapacitor. So as a result, it's believed that it won't have an issue, high temperature and low temperature. Okay. We've gone to 0 degrees, haven't seen an issue. I think we haven't done the high temperature. Why? Because you literally got to buy an oven and put the testing equipment in the oven. It's a special testing environment. So we've bought that and it's being tested, but it hasn't been tested yet, but it's on the path for sometime this year. Okay. But generally it operates at room temperature with this, and we'll see what it does at higher temperature. And then I think there are some applications where it could really be seen as below zero as well. But as a supercapacitor type battery, you're generally not expecting a temperature variation.
Okay. And have you done any comparisons to these large lithium batteries that have been proposed by Elon Musk?
Yeah, look, so this is where, we're not absolutely in any way anti-lithium. We're just pro-aluminium for this battery. So first of all, and because lithium absolutely will always have its space, and it will be there forevermore, and there'll be certain applications where it'll just be the best battery. And so this battery has a lot of benefits that I think will always be difficult for lithium to match. So the power density, it's a really fast charging, discharging, and you'll soon see our cycle time, how many times it's cycled. but one of the strongest benefits is the fact that it's just graphene and aluminium. There's no lithium, and lithium is a very complicated product to be able to mine, process, become a nanomaterial. Generally, that's at least 2 to 3 countries already you're in, and then eventually pack that up with about 15 other different materials to make lithium, manganese, nickel, cobalt batteries. So you've got 15 different materials coming from all over the world. And that is some of the reasons why we have problems, is that, you know, one material is shortened, and also the lithium iron phosphate, which was a battery earlier being used, is now kind of come back to the forefront. It's a bit simpler, but also it's been improved. So, you know, I think it's difficult to kind of say which one is which. Most importantly, lithium is at scale, right? And we're not at scale, so we need to get at scale, and then we can show that what we can do.
Okay, let's talk about how you guys are going to get to scale then. Let's move on.
Okay. Let's talk about it. So there's a bit of a nanoscience, but I can talk about that if you want now.
No, yeah, continue on with this. We'll get to these other questions. Mm-hmm.
Okay, for sure. Because I know some people are interested in the nanoscience and how this is different. Okay, so what you're looking at here is the cathode. So we're putting the carbon on the cathode. Now I'll let that sink in for those guys who on the call who want to understand a bit more about this battery. You put the carbon, the synthetic graphite in lithium battery, on the anode. So this is really not a normal type of battery, and as soon as you hear that, you go, right, I need to really understand this, because it is different. Now, what we do is, and this is what's been patent pending from University of Queensland, is we use a certain process and product to be able to make holes in the graphene, and so that creates this these holes, or these spots, where the aluminium ion, and an aluminium ion is just an atom without some electrons. So that's where the electrons go around the circuit to create the charge, where you're charging a light bulb or whatever. That atom ion has come across and it's got to sit in something to stay. And through this process, they're able to get 92.5% utilization of the spots that the ions can sit. And that's what this is about. That's the density, the energy density that we've been able to create. And so that's the surface perforated graphene 3 there. And that's what's so amazing about this technology, is that we're able to make tiny little holes. We drill tiny little holes in a process that can be easily scaled to be able to put the aluminium ion in a very dense structure, which will then provide a much higher energy density than previously thought of or got to for aluminium ion batteries.
Okay. The key being, though, that this is scalable, right? Yeah,
totally. Yeah. In fact, the easiest thing is to put the holes in the graphene. Making the graphene exactly that way, that's the trick. It's 95% in the graphene.
Okay.
So another performance test data we can show here. This is a data we released back in June, which shows that our battery is sitting at 3,000 cycles, or over 3,000 cycles, without any deterioration. Now, if you're not a battery kind of geek or person, you won't probably kind of get oohed and ahed about 66 Coulomb. So where this is sitting is we're sitting this at an enormous amount of charging rate, and it's got a very high energy density. And then the second 1,000 is even higher. So that's at what's called 30 Coulomb. And then where it sits in the end is another 1,000 cycles at 66 Coulomb. So 66 Coulomb, or 10 amps per gram, is it's something like 300 times faster than you normally charge your phone. So what that says is that can cycle 1,000 times, charging 300 times faster than your normal phone, and still no problem at very high energy density. And this chart is the chart that most of our prospective customers get very excited about. That's the hallowed land.
Okay.
Now, maybe before I hand it over to Chris, or maybe after I hand it over to Chris, we talk about applications, but up to you, Cory.
You know what? We have a lot of questions coming in, and I know there aren't that many more slides left, so I'll let you guys run through these slides, and then we're going to take care of all these questions that have come in at the end. So, Chris, go for it.
Thanks, Cory. Hi, everyone. GMG has been listed on the TSX Venture Exchange since April this year. The ticker is GMG. We took the company public in April with a simultaneous private placement at 65 cents per share. Based on September 1's close, we're approximately 3.5 times that valuation now. Last night, 229, or a market cap of approximately $165 million. Investors in Europe can also access our recent quotation there in euros via TradeGate, which is seeing some increasing volumes as well. Management and board, including many of the founding management team, has maintained a significant stake in the company at 37%. And I'm pleased to say that as of a few hours ago, we announced the completion of our latest financing, raising gross proceeds of $12.4 million. I can also say now that the underwriters in that financing have exercised their over-allotment option in full, which will increase that cash estimate you see there of 13.1 to approximately $14.5 million after costs. Of course, as we've said, we're aiming for material revenue in the near term as TXR sales are secured in the coming months, so that'll influence our cash resources and runway as well. So given that we are now well funded, our goal is significant value creation as that capital is deployed, and we think this financing positions us very well to achieve that.
What are these proceeds going to be used for? When you do, let's say, get the $14.5 million in the bank, where's it going to be allocated?
So as we said in our prospectus, Cory, it's a number of things. During the remainder of this year, we are planning to develop a commercial prototype for the lithium, the aluminium ion battery, and also undertake the front-end design work for a manufacturing facility for a coin cell manufacturing plant. So all going well with those two things, then we've now got the funding that we need to construct that coin cell manufacturing facility, which as it says, in the planning stages, and obviously cover our operating expenses for some time. So as I said, that financing sees us well funded to take the company through the next stage of growth.
Okay. Any interest, any moves to listing on the Australian exchange? And also, to that point, any insights on how Australian individuals, the retail audience, can buy GMG shares?
Yeah, we get that question all the time, obviously being an Australian public company listed in Canada. I think we've got no plans as yet. We're happy to just get through this listing that we just did in April. It was quite an undertaking, and obviously the latest financing as well. Germany and the US for quotations were our planned next stage to provide better access for investors to buy GMG shares. But it's not out of the question that we could do something like that in Australia in the future. There certainly is a lot of interest as the profile of the company's increased in the Australian capital markets as well, and in the product markets and press as well, the profile of the company's listed. So that's something that we'll continue to look at. As for how Australian investors can access the shares, I think obviously talk to your stockbroker. It's quite easy for your stockbroker to go and buy international shares, even if you're an Australian resident.
Okay, thank you.
The famous summary slide, Cory. So let's get those questions going.
Okay. Well, even to this summary slide, I guess, What are the expectations here of GMG in the next 12 to 18 months to get into market, first to market type of advantage here? What are the steps? What are your guys' strategy?
Yeah, so we've got three products, the famous three, and it's a very powerful three. You've got two that effectively have market risk. We're creating the markets. We're creating product outcomes that customers haven't seen before, and that's what our sales and marketing team are heavily focused on: getting TXR in various different countries around the world, getting it demonstrated and then proven, and then pushing into large-scale distribution contracts. That's TXR, and the opportunity there is real material revenue very quickly. But we've got to get our customers to accept that what we can do is extremely possible, not just in our country, not just in another country, but in their country. And that's what they all want. So that's what we've got to get through. And with COVID, look, I don't in any way want to have any excuse around COVID, but it does make things more difficult. So we've just got to push through that. We've got to find ways of making it happen. It's so much easier to fly there and go, oh, this is how you do it, and make it happen. And then, but you can't do that, not in our country and a lot of other countries around the world. And then there's always, restrictions regardless, even if you can fly somewhere. You can't even get up and do the work, even if you want to. So that's that product. And, that's really what we're hoping for near material revenues in different areas of the world. In Middle East, obviously, is got a high prospectivity for that product for us. There's a real opportunity there with our partner, Openia, and we're very happy with how things are progressing there. So then you've got graphene lubricants, which is a concentrate which will supply to a very different business model, which will supply to lubricant manufacturers. We're seeing great results technically. Again, we've got to get our potential customers across the line to show that ours is worthy of including in some of their engine oils that they market. So it's base load volume, good revenues, and very different business model. Very, very, limited number of customers. But upfront, you might be doing tier 3, tier 2, and then eventually you might get a tier 1, one of the global guys that we are working with. So then the third product really is probably what everybody would love to hear, is how does the battery get monetized? How does it get commercialized? And that's literally, it's a great question because it has so many applications, and it's a technical risk. So the other two, market risk, and really the battery is technical risk. It's just getting through what technical outcomes do you get at scale? How fast can we make them? How big can we make the project with enough risk that we can, take as a company and in the first stages? And, that's a great portfolio. Or, if I could think of a portfolio, dream of portfolio, 2 market risk opportunities and 1 technical risk opportunity to push out. So I'm very happy with how that's come about. And so with respect to batteries, it's funny because batteries are typically always only ever produced in a coin cell, then they go to a pouch pack, and then they might go to something else. It's just only recently, like that's just how you do them. You work out, you make sure the coin cell works, you get that out to market, you show it works, and then you just push out pouch packs, which are just bigger coin cells, except they have the same material and they just don't have the little metal things around them. That's all it is. But and some companies have kind of veered away from that. That's the trusted way of marketing a new battery technology. But we've stuck to it, and we think that's the right way to do it. There's material revenues available for a coin cell plant. Our technologies enable, just in a coin cell, existing batteries Obviously, we've got to get a proven coin cell working commercial prototype, which is our goal, which we're working on very heavily. So we get that out and get that tested by customers, make sure that it's to the degree that we want it. What's an interesting element is that the more graphene we put into the coin cell, the more energy it has. So it's really up to us on how much energy is in one of these batteries. And then, of course, really up to us means it's really up to the customers on how much they want to pay. So we put more graphene, we store more ions. So it's a really interesting situation. We've got to work out, well, how much do we want to put in and how does that look for a customer and what do they want to pay for it and how big is the plant as a result. So if we can get their coin cells out, tested and commercially verified by the end of the year, which is what we're pushing for, we're at the same time scoping sites and equipment for building the production plant, which of course would need a final investment decision by the board. And we would only go, I can say it'll be very unlikely for us to go and build a plant without a committed sales contract. I think that's quite clear. I think Chris is smiling as a result of that. I don't think we're going to be building a plant. The board just won't approve a plant without a contract, which is our background in Shell, where you would always build that sales portfolio of contracts and then go and deliver that as a project. So we have a very substantially experienced projects team who built mega projects and downstream projects, decades of experience each. And that's what they're leading right now, of how to design a project which can be enabling all these different variables of how much graphene to put in each coin cell, how many coin cells are we going to make, how many millions are we going to make, which application we're going to work for. And then soon thereafter, we'll start to make pouch pack prototypes. So we have far more people interested in our pouch pack than our coin cell, but we've got more people that could probably buy our pouch than our coin cell already that we could probably handle. So that just shows you the pouch pack is because it's so what's called a form factor. The shape of it is really versatile. So you can use it in cars, you can use it in energy storage for houses or grid, or you could put it in pretty much any type of application once it's in a pouch pack. And because we don't need cooling and because it's not going to blow up if it gets damaged, it's going to go to market a whole lot less. It'll still have the stringent requirements because it's a very powerful piece of equipment, this battery that we'll sell, but it won't be needing to be discharged before sending it out like a lithium battery, because otherwise they have been known to blow up in transit. So they've got a UN declaration, you can't ship lithium batteries without doing that. So it'll have a lot of advantages logistically. And then it's really just looking at what applications are going to work best for the pouch pack. And it's going to work for us in our volumes. And as I said, personal electronics just keeps speaking volumes. So hopefully we can get some good trials with pouch packs. And then once we get to a pouch pack customer confirmation that right now we're saying by the end of next year. So that's a fair amount of time we've got to get that right. But once you've got the nanochemistry right for a coin cell, you can go to a pouch pack quite easily. And then it's, okay, how big is that pouch pack plant? And you really need scale. You really need scale to build a pouch pack effectively. And you're talking, say, a quarter of gigawatt hour production plant. So 250 megawatt hour, maybe up to a gigawatt hour plant. That's a pretty big one, but that's kind of scale you'd look at next. And then it's just how, what's the risk tolerance? What's the customer opportunity? How do we scale this? And once you've done that, then it's really, you're into the 10 gigawatt hour plant per annum, like the true gigawatt. So that's kind of the stepping stone. And, we see the markets there. We see that it'll grow, opportunities will grow. We'll go into new applications that don't exist right now. Our batteries are really good in areas that lithium batteries don't work, but they can also be swapped out on lithium battery applications. Got a lot of technical work to get through, but we're pretty confident with UQ and obviously our own team that we can get there.
Okay, that answered a lot of questions, and a lot of people were asking, what about moving into such things as car batteries? Even drone batteries was asked about. So you can progress through there. You're going in a systematic manner, and by the end of next year, yeah, hopefully you do have those pouch packs available to you. Everybody wants to know about revenue. Then, Craig, when will we see revenue, whether it's from the lubricant division, thermal XR division, or battery division? Let's start with the lubricant and thermal XR division. We haven't talked much about the lubricant market too, but you even said some of that is in market, I believe. You said at the beginning. So when are we going to start to see some more significant revenue from the company?
Yeah, we of course we don't have guidance as yet, so we're not providing that. We're less than 6 months in and listed from being listed. I think we're obviously pushing that as hard. So half of our business is, I'd say half. It's half of our business is pushing revenues out as an absolute pure focus, and the other half is pushing the technical focus in batteries. There are opportunities that will provide significant revenues, and that's all I can say. That they're there, and they're scalable, and they're high margin. And I think once that's come in and the penny drops, we will, our opportunity will be both. We'll have to defend this market that we've created, put a lot of work in to create the market. And then, because people will see our margins and they'll say, yeah, we need to go into that. And we see that some of our competitors are already trying to work into this energy saving coating systems already. So once we make it, then we'll have to grow and get it and faster, so we can really make sure we can build what we've created, because we're creating this market. That's the best way to describe it. And unless you've created a market, it's kind of it's really hard to know to say that when it's going to happen, and you don't want to talk about hockey sticks. But yeah, there's because that rate of hockey stick is always variable to the exact creation of that market. Anything that you want to say on that, Chris?
Yeah, Cory. I mean, in case people haven't looked at our numbers, we're in the early stages of revenue now. In the 9 months to 31 March 21, which is the last report we sent out, it was sort of $200,000. But agree, yeah, we're prevented because we don't have that guidance out there from commenting in a lot of detail on the outlook for revenue and earnings. And as Craig said, in the near term, it's targeted to be from the HVAC coating system, thermal, or we call it TXR. So we'll definitely be keeping you informed on that. As far as cash flow is concerned, given our rate of spending on operating expenses, achieving positive cash flow is also an important goal of ours in the coming 1 to 2 years. However, that'll depend on a few things. Obviously, the timing and the rate of deployment of capital expenditure on production facilities and any increases in expenses that we have during that period, as well as the timing and amount of revenues we can achieve as we build into these early markets that we're targeting that Craig mentioned.
Okay. Craig, regarding the thermal XR too, a lot of people have been talking about the Opinia deal where you guys are entering or at least doing some testing in the United Arab Emirates. What about other countries like North America, like other countries, to get thermal XR utilized in some of those?
Yeah, and look, we do get requests from those countries, and we can literally go into every country in the world. So there's more than 1 billion of them in air conditioners in the world. So say the International Energy Agency. So we're going to be very careful about our first focus countries. And Middle East, which I'm sure everyone realizes is a lot hotter than most other countries, and as well as they use more air conditioning and their electricity prices are generally higher. It depends. Each country is different in that space. So UAE is a fantastic opportunity for TXR to show its benefits in reducing emissions, reducing energy costs. And so we are doing a lot of work there with Opinia. but that we believe is going to be one of the first countries that we hope to work with Apenia on. That there are other countries that we could take that to, and they could be bigger or they could be smaller, and so really it's a stepping stone. Dubai, even though Dubai is massive and you don't really need to worry about much more, but it does. You can take this to other countries and roll it out. We're creating the business models, we're creating the market, the opportunity, the awareness, and that takes time. Solidly wish to say that it's happened already, but we keep pushing, and one day it will, and then people go, wow, they've created that market, and then they've made that market happen. So I think America will come, Canada will come, obviously North Asia will come, Northeast Asia, Japan, solid market, Europe obviously, but and then you've got all of North Africa as well. So there's an enormous amount of the globe that this will work in. I think I've almost covered most of the prospective continents. Of course, Southeast Asia we're already in. We've got a business developer there. We're working a number of projects in Singapore and Malaysia to show to potential distributors. And then, you've got then obviously Latin America as well. So there's the opportunity is vast, and it's very similar to how we've gone with graphene. You can't try to win. You can't try to chase all the rabbits, and you've got to pick one rabbit. Otherwise, you chase more than one, you're not going to get fed. So we've got to chase one, and we've picked one market, one rabbit, and that's Middle East. We're very focused there. The others have definitely got some opportunity, and we'll work with them. But Middle East is definitely the one that we want to get to and show how it works at scale and scale it fast.
Fair enough. You guys have a lot of different growth avenues, and I think that's why we're getting so many questions coming in. Thank you, everybody, for sending in all these questions. We are running a bit lower on time, but again, I am going to accumulate all of these questions and have Craig back on my show to address whichever ones we missed, and there are a lot here that have come in. But Craig, I really want to end on a couple questions here. One being big picture, getting some of these products to market, whether it's the thermal XR, whether it's the batteries. Is this going to be a licensing deal, teaming up with a big group or a big manufacturer to implement, or is this going to be going straight to market you guys? Can you shed some more light on that?
Yeah, so far we've looked to create the market ourselves. Big companies, we've had a number of them, and they come and they go and they come back and they come back and they go and they come back. We are a very interesting fish, and I think a lot of big companies don't know how to cook us, so to speak, right? So, so we've got a lot of relationships with a lot of big companies. We're creating a market, so someone somewhere has to go, yep, I'm going to put effort and focus on that at a big company level. That is, in the end, I think that is quite likely, but it's just when is that? And by then, how much have we already done ourselves? And then it's the case, well, what are you guys bringing? You came too long to the party. We're already cleaning up type stuff, So that's the question in my mind is, when do some big guys who say they absolutely want to come along and make this happen? Well, have they come too late, and have we already created the market, and therefore we don't really want to give that up, so to speak?
Okay. Now just wrap us up here, Craig, in terms of looking ahead for everyone who's tuned in here, everyone who's going to watch the replay. What should investors be focused on in terms of key catalysts as we move through this year and early on into next year?
I love your key catalyst section, Cory. So it's focused on our battery testing results. That is crucial. We get that done, get a commercial prototype out by the end of this year. Look, there's a lot of companies that we get compared to in the web, but look up other absolute next-gen battery company valuations and see what they're worth. Once we've proven that commercial prototype, I think those valuations will become more real. As comparative valuations will become more real. That is absolutely one. Obviously, material revenue signings, which we hope to come to market at some point, with mostly TXR likely, and then after that, some graphene lubricant concentrates.
Okay. Everybody, again, sorry if we did not get to your question. There are so many here that I am going to be having Craig back on my show. And please email me all the rest of your questions. And just even to remind me if I missed any of yours, fleck@kereport.com. You can also contact the company directly through either email or the phone number there. Craig, I appreciate your time here. There's clearly a lot of interest in this company just due to all the questions that have come in on a wide variety of topics here. I look forward to following up with you on, well, first of all, the question and answer segment that we're going to do, and also on future webinars. Craig, Chris, thank you for your time. Really appreciate all of you tuning in. And please, everyone, keep in touch. We're going to keep following up with graphene manufacturing.
Thanks, Cory.